For the past few parts, we've been talking about listening. Now we're going to talk about reading. Yeah, I know some people out there are thinking, reading? But I'm a beginner. How can I read? Well, that's where it gets interesting. Like everything else, what's really important for your brain to learn naturally is to learn in context. Now remember that the natural process of learning is number one, you don't understand, two, you make mistakes, and then three, you correct it and you have learning. So, it's fantastic that you feel like you don't know how to read because you may be surprised what you can understand even though you don't have a lot of vocabulary. So what am I suggesting? That you just read absolutely anything? No. What's really important for both beginners and both advanced learners is that you be highly engaged with what you're reading. That means that you want something from it. There's something in it that really interests you. Okay, so for the beginners, it's not going to be easy in the beginning. It's going to take a lot of effort. Do I want you to translate all of the words? No, I don't want you to translate anything. I want you to read and try to understand what you can, even if it's only 1 to 3 words. If you've got 3 words, wow, that's 3 more than 0. And remember, you're a beginner. So you should expect that. The important thing is don't stop. And I mean that. Okay, well, don't stop till you get to the end of the page. If you're reading something short, which is what I generally suggest, because most of us don't have a lot of time to read. I certainly don't, and you probably don't either. So I generally suggest you find something short that really interests you and read it from the beginning to the end without stopping and see how much you can understand. Now, if you're a beginner, obviously it's not going to be a lot. But what's really important is to try to get as much understanding as you can from it without translating anything. Several ideas will be repeated during what you're reading, and that'll give your brain another opportunity to imagine what it means when you do get to the end and you do stop. For beginners, it's important for you to consider if there's anything in there that you really want. I'm not talking about every word you didn't understand. I'm talking about something that maybe repeats several times and you think is really important to getting some information from what you're reading. In this case, what you need to do is to find out what that means. For beginners, this may mean going to some kind of translation in the beginning, but only in the beginning so you can get some meaning from it. For advanced learners, I don't want you to do any translation at all. What I do want you to do is go to an English dictionary. Yes, there are lots of them online. If you don't like the explanation in the dictionary, look at another one. I use several different dictionaries when I'm looking in dictionaries online to get the best definition for me. So here's what's really important at the point that you go to a dictionary, or in your case, if you're a beginner and you need to translate, okay, is that you probably had some kind of idea about what it meant, like what it was related to, or what it suggested, if it was positive or negative. These things are really important to confirm when you look at the definition of it. And it's really important to give your brain positive feedback. Tell it did a great job. Yeah, I knew that's what it was about. This is really important because it helps your brain to do it again faster and better each time. Now, how much should you be doing this? Well, it really depends on how much time you have and how much you really find things that you are engaged in. Now, you may think that I'm kind of crazy. I'm just suggesting that you do something for no reason at all. No, this all comes from my personal experience learning languages, particularly the language of Portuguese, which for those of you who are Portuguese speakers, you know how complicated Portuguese really is, especially for reading and writing. So I used to read texts that I was super interested in and try to get some kind of information from it. I'd go on, read another one, then read another one. And then I'd come back to that text and see if I couldn't understand more. And you know what? Every time I could. There were moments where I was like, oh my God, that's what that means? That's a positive feedback moment. So remember, what you're really doing is giving your brain the opportunity, the resources, the environment to learn naturally. You don't have to make it something unpleasant and say, well, Mr. Weber said I have to do this. No, you don't have to do that. Try to find something that really interests you, something that you're really engaged with. Remember that engagement defines the level of effectiveness of your learning. And positive feedback is what drives it. All you have to do is give your brain the opportunity. How much? As much as you can enjoy the challenge of doing so. Is more better? Yes, more is better as long as you're engaged and you have positive feedback. If you start to feel negative feedback on what you're doing, stop, put it down, step back, do something else, do some listening. Just to recap, remember that when you're reading, it's really important not to stop and look something up. When you stop and look something up, you tell your brain, you don't know, I'm going to find out, and I'll tell you. That doesn't give your brain an opportunity to learn. It actually robs your brain of an opportunity to learn. Give it the opportunity to see that maybe more than once and try and imagine what it means in the context. This is how your brain naturally learns. It's how you learned your language, not by reading because you learned your language before you learned to read, but the reading helps. It gives your brain more context. It really already understands what reading is and how to do it, so you're giving it more opportunities to learn. So don't stop. And then ask yourself, is there something here that I really want? How much can I understand? And then read something else. After a while, come back to it. Now, if you're an advanced reader, when you get to the end, you ask yourself, okay, did I get the basic message? If you got the basic message, then woohoo, fantastic. Ask yourself the question, is there anything here that I want? Not is there anything I didn't understand? Is there anything here I really want to make my own? Then you go to an English dictionary. Don't forget the positive feedback. This will help your brain tremendously in its learning process, particularly to build autonomy, which, as I mentioned in a previous video, I'll be talking about later on, not right now. Another of the benefits of reading is that it's a really fantastic way for you to build your vocabulary. I really developed my vocabulary in Portuguese by reading a lot. It's also important in English, because we don't have a big connection between the way you write things and the way you say them, for you to see the pronunciation. So when you're acquiring new vocabulary, make sure you go to Google and you listen to the pronunciation of the word. Don't worry too much about it, just get an idea of how it's said. You might be surprised at what it sounds like. Remember that the most important thing is for you to enjoy the challenge. So I'll see you in the next part.